Hello, I'm Kristen, and today is May 22nd, 2026, and today was the official second release of UAP files from the Department of War. So I wanted to dig right into kind of like all of the release videos that came out today and kind of touch on what most of them were, what some specific ones that caught my eye were, and a couple of videos that are gaining some attention that are kind of discredited. So I would say just right off the bat, a lot of the videos that I will not be showing today were just of the standard orbs that we saw in like the last release. So just little tiny white glowing balls. In some cases, it shows like the correct contrast where the object itself is like dark, flying over water or flying over land, but mostly water. So you see like a lot of just glowing orbs, a few discs. There were a couple of videos that kind of like showed blob like glowing objects, but essentially look like orbs with like maybe like a little bit of deformation around an edge or just like a little bit of like lengthening in certain areas, but like nothing that really stands out. So those would be like really similar to kind of like the last release. I will put in a couple of examples of this that I saw that came up in today's videos, but there were a few videos that showed like orbs flying in formation. And so the last video that I made about release number 1, I did show that there were like twin orbs that came up repeatedly. And so it'd be like two orbs that kind of just like move together, or it looks like they could be two stationary lights that are on the same object. In today's release, the type of like formation orbs that were shown, like it was more than two. So it would be like 3 in a row or 3 in a triangle formation, or it would be 4 or 5 all in a row, all kind of flying together. And that's kind of like the extent of those videos. It doesn't really show them doing anything. It doesn't show them like moving over a particularly interesting area. Again, most of these videos are over water. But to kind of get into some of the very specific videos that stood out to me, I would say the most notable video that I saw, it showed a huge disc, which with the correct contrast on infrared, it's showing up as like a dark disc, so potentially metal. And it's coming up out of a cloud, and it kind of like moves over to the right of the frame, and it moves back down and moves in through the clouds that are next to it. And so that was filmed by the U.S. Central Command on November 23rd, 2020 via infrared. It so much reminded me of like the scenes from Nope, where the main character is standing outside at night, and like pretty much like the whole sky is just really well lit up by the moon, and you can see that there's like all these clouds in the sky as he's outside with his horse, and he just sees like this huge craft kind of moving, and it's this shocking scene. And I can almost imagine that like this video that was released of this huge disc coming up out of the clouds and moving into another one, it's like if you were on the ground, I feel like that's essentially like what it would probably look like, which is very shocking and very startling. And I know that infrared footage in general, it's not kind of that impressive. But maybe at some point, as like these releases continue on and we get like higher definition videos and possibly like more like in color videos, videos taken like from the ground from different military members, like we'll begin to start seeing like how these craft actually look when you're like up close and next to them, or just like seeing them in like a way that looks more like actual eyesight instead of just kind of like military technology. And then another video that a lot of people online are focusing on is a UAP that's accelerating away in the air over Syria. So that video was filmed in 2021, and it appears to be an orb. So it's just kind of like this, again, glowing luminous ball, and it's like many of the other videos, we're watching this orb kind of move along at a steady pace, and then all of a sudden it just like shoots off into the distance. And so the way that the military released this footage is like they took like the original footage in regular speed, and then they also released it like super slowed down, so you could see like even in slow down, like slow motion, it's like it's still like very, very fast. One of the other videos that kind of caught my eye, it showed like a humanoid type of shape glowing UAP that was filmed by U.S. Central Command in 2020. And so again, while a lot of these videos that show anything that is glowing in orb like, they're not that interesting. It just shows something glowing moving over water. What I noticed was interesting about this one is that it seems to change shape, or it's like the different aspects and details that are on this type of UAP kind of move and morph, possibly because of speed or movement. but just the shape of this thing, it's almost seems like it has like an area that would be a head or like an upper detail, and then it has like the bulk of the body, which is a bit deformed or strangely shaped in the back or like on the right hand side, and then there's like a piece hanging down. And so this is not the first time that we've seen something like this. There has been another video released a while back, a year or two ago, that was like also showing like this, like what people almost called like a space traveler or something, like moving quickly over water. And in that old footage, it was showing like something that could almost like look like a being that was sitting in some type of contraption with something dangling down below its legs, or like where its legs would be. Um, this one, it's glowing, so you can't see any detail. You just see this white mass, but it seems to have like that similar kind of shape of the previous footage that was released. And then there was also a video that was released. It's a UAP like flaring up or pulsing, as the military kind of described it online, and it's just another orb moving over water. But you could see that it glows really bright and then it dims down, and it glows really bright and it dims down, and so there are all these light rays that are coming off of it every single time it brightens up. And so I would just put out there, just like with release number 1, where we saw like that kind of 8-pointed star type of UAP, like that's almost certainly not what it actually would have looked like if you saw it with the naked eye. That's just kind of like an artifact of the technology trying to capture something really bright. I think that is also what's going on with the flaring, pulsing UAP in this footage. It's these kind of like perfect rays of light that are coming off of it, but just in reality, it would just, if you saw it with your naked eye, it would just like look like this really bright kind of like halo that comes out and then dims down. And that really stood out to me, just because there's so many nights that I go outside and I'll see an orb just appear. I'm looking at a dead, empty sky, except for the stars, and I'll just see it like kind of drop down or appear in the sky, and an orb will move slightly through the air, and it'll get super, super bright, or flare, as I like to say, and then it'll dim and then completely disappear. Or depending on the night, it might show up and just kind of sit in one spot and then like flare super, super bright, like huge, and then it like completely just like winks out without moving. And so I thought it was just like, it was really cool to have kind of seen that somebody else caught something like that on video. Typically, if you take to the internet and you ask like, what is this object that I saw in the sky that dims and brightens and dims and brightens, like a lot of like people, like astronomers, they'll mention online that could be like space junk that's kind of like spinning. And so as like a certain part of like the reflective part of the space junk or satellite spins, and it kind of hits the sun and glints off, like every time it kind of like rolls or tumbles, it'll brighten. But to see that this was like really low Earth orbit, like right over water, and it was, I believe it was over water, but anyway you cut it, it was low, it wasn't like way out in space, and the fact they caught this like flaring up was like really cool. And to kind of get into the discredited releases from today, so I believe it was Tim Burchett or Representative Burleson that was saying like there's going to be videos released in this batch that are kind of not anomalous, that have like very like prosaic explanations. And so like the big one that was like listed like right on the front page of like war.gov today was an object being shot down over Lake Huron. And let's see, that was on February 12th, 2023. And so it's just very obvious, like when you watch that video footage, that it's clearly a balloon. It's, I don't know if it's like a weather balloon or some type of recreational balloon, but it is like very clearly a balloon that was flying over this area and then was like shot down. So that one, I guess we could just kind of ignore from now on, just because it's not really interesting. And I know there was like a big cleanup effort, and there was like a big like hush hush movement like as it was happening, where as the military was coming in to clean up all of that debris, they were saying like civilians need to get away, you can't see like what's over here. And it's been the subject of like many conspiracies over the years. But yeah, it ended up really being nothing essentially, except probably like a spy balloon. And then the other kind of like big footage that came out today, it was shot, let's see, it was a light in the sky over Karaganda Airport in Kazakhstan, and that was taken from somebody's phone in March 2022. So in this footage, it kind of shows like this big bluish light. Well, the light itself is like quite small, but the small light is putting out these huge bands and beams of light into the sky. And it's a short clip. You don't get like a good idea of how long it was there, if it just shut off, if it faded out. Like again, it's for whatever reason, people don't film like the entire event or the entire scene of what was going on. But that one caught my eye, and I was like, this kind of like looks like something that would be man-made if we were putting something up into space, or I suppose like putting, I don't even know about like flares or some type of planes or like large drones with lights on it, but it looked very just man-made. And so I took to the internet and I started like looking for this airport and to see if like other people this morning were already talking about it, and of course they were. And so the comment that caught my eye, that was kind of explaining like how kind of normal this is, they said that it is a second stage of a rocket burning fuel. And so they had like put up a picture from a different angle of like what that typically looks like. And even though the typical pictures don't show like these big beams and these big rays, like I could definitely see it possibly being that, or again, like I said, just actual beams coming off of a regular craft that we would have here on Earth. Just, I think it looks magnificent. It's just amazing to see something that's like such a small kind of light like emitting such bright lights outwards, but it didn't seem anomalous. And then just to kind of end this video, I'd like to touch on kind of the prettiest video that I saw out of like everything that was released today. So again, it was like clicking and watching through just a lot of videos of just regular little orbs moving over like really blank, kind of boring spaces. This one's kind of boring too, but it's in high definition, so that's kind of like why I'm pointing it out. And this one was taken by the US military over the Yellow Sea in January 2023. And so it's much like the pretty windmill video that I kind of highlighted in my first release video. This one is just a tiny little orb, like living its life, just doing whatever it does, just like flying through the air. But it is like kind of just like flying past these like super high definition clouds, and it's just really pretty. So I will leave you with that. And once again, if there is anything that comes out of the PDF releases that's worth talking about, I will be on here and I will be discussing that. As far as I've seen and from what I was looking through of release 1, all of those PDFs, it just seemed like information that was essentially already out there. So it was documentation that had already kind of been out in the public sphere, that was from like UFO conferences and letters written to various officials that were from people from UFO organizations or people that had sightings, but it wasn't nothing conclusive and nothing that was like really tied to a notable event or something that people really wanted to know about, or putting out any information that we didn't already have. It was, you know, like quite tame, I suppose. And with every release, I'm sure that these like documents will get more and more important, and they'll start having more and more details, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we will start actually seeing footage of non-human intelligence, like the actual biological beings, or these like biological robotic beings, anyway you want to kind of, these actual like physical beings that are coming to people. I think it'll be another few releases, but I do believe that it is building up to that, in order to like, all of this is just acclimating us to what will be coming and what we're going to learn about. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.